Lauri Törni fought for Finland, Nazi Germany, and the United States Army, and every single time, he aimed at the Soviet Union. He started as a guerrilla commander operating behind enemy lines in the Finnish wilderness during World War II. He finished as a Special Forces captain advising jungle patrols in Vietnam. In between, there was a treason conviction, a prison sentence, an illegal crossing into the United States aboard a cargo ship, and a complete change of identity. The American military didn't just accept him. They put him in charge of training their most elite soldiers. Stay until the end, because the way his story finally closed is the part that almost no one knows. Finland fought two separate wars against the Soviet Union in quick succession. The Winter War ran from 1939 to 1940. The continuation war started in June 1941, 11 months later. By the time the second conflict began, the Finnish army had learned something from the first one. Holding defensive lines cost men and ground. What actually hurt the Soviet Union was getting behind their positions and making those positions untenable. Certain Finnish units were built specifically for that purpose. They moved deep into Soviet-controlled territory on skis, targeted supply lines, killed officers, burned fuel depots, and withdrew before the Red Army could stage a response. The terrain was part of the strategy. The forests and frozen lakes of Karelia were obstacles. The Soviets couldn't navigate fast enough to catch anyone who knew the land. Lauri Törni was given command of one of those units in 1943. He was 24 years old with 2 years of combat already behind him. What Detachment Törni did inside Soviet lines over the following year was documented in Finnish military records with unusual detail. The unit hit targets 60, 70, 80 kilometers behind the front. Raids that the Red Army couldn't predict because the approach routes shouldn't have been passable. Törni was wounded multiple times across those operations and returned to the field each time he was cleared. By 1944, he had been nominated for the Mannerheim Cross, the highest military decoration Finland issued. Most of his men had never questioned an order he gave. Then Finland signed its armistice with the Soviet Union in September 1944. The war was over. One of the terms required Finland to expel all German forces from its territory. For Törni, that wasn't an ending he was prepared to accept. He crossed the border into Germany instead. The Waffen-SS ran its own officer candidate school, and Törni's record in Finland was the kind of documentation that cleared bureaucratic hurdles without difficulty. He was commissioned as an Untersturmführer, the lowest officer rank, and served until Germany surrendered in May 1945. He went home. The Finnish government arrested him at the border. Under the Armistice terms, any Finnish soldier who had taken up arms with German forces after the peace agreement was in violation of Finnish law. Törni was charged with treason, tried, and convicted. The sentence was 6 years. He served before a general amnesty program released him. The conviction stayed on record. The Mannerheim Cross nomination and the 2 years of guerrilla operations that earned it didn't change the legal outcome. He was free, decorated, convicted, and unemployable in the country he had bled for. Post-war Europe had limited options for a man whose most recent service was with the SS. He moved to Sweden. He spent time there making contacts, looking for a route forward. In 1950, he found one. He boarded a cargo ship and sailed for the United States. He entered the country without documentation, without legal status, without a plan beyond getting there. U.S. immigration authorities caught him within a year. Deportation proceedings began. Then the army looked at his file. The Korean War was ongoing. The Cold War was reshaping American military doctrine at every level. Special forces were being built from scratch, and the most pressing problem facing their leadership was instructors. The men being recruited for unconventional warfare needed trainers who had done unconventional warfare for real, in the field, against a serious enemy. That resume was rare. Törni's was one of the few that actually fit. A provision in U.S. immigration law allowed foreign nationals to earn citizenship through military service when the Secretary of the Army determined it served the national interest. The determination was made. Törni enlisted in 1950 under the name Lauri Törni and was assigned to the 77th Special Forces Group. For the next decade, he ran training programs for American soldiers in small unit movement, ambush technique, survival in extreme terrain, and the specific mechanics of operating behind enemy lines without support. Colleagues from that period described him later as someone who taught by showing, not by explaining. He was commissioned as a captain in the early 1960s. When Special Forces advisors began rotating into Vietnam, Thorne was on the deployment lists. He was 50 years old. He went on the missions himself. On October 18, 1965, Captain Lauri Törni boarded a UH-34 helicopter for a classified operation in Laos. The helicopter went down somewhere over the mountains. He did not return. The US military listed him as missing in action. The mission itself stayed classified for years, and for decades his family had no confirmed answer about where or how he died. In 1999, a joint US-Vietnam recovery team found crashed debris and human remains in the Laotian highlands. DNA testing matched the remains to Lauri Törni. In October 2003, 38 years after the helicopter went down, he was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery in Virginia. His marker reads, Lauri A. Thorne, Captain, United States Army Special Forces. Military historians consider him the only person confirmed to have held officer rank in the Finnish Army, the Waffen-SS, and US Special Forces, 3 armies, 3 wars. One direction he always pointed, he is still there. Section 12 of Arlington, about 4 miles from the tomb of the unknown soldier, under a name he chose for himself in a country that was never supposed to let him in. Subscribe to History Drop, new video every week.